Hey guys, it's Wahima, but just call me Wah.
Melanated.
Today I'm here with my sister Sawai and Ladani, and we are going to talk about The Real Housewives of Potomac, Ep.7.
Let's get into it. All right. So we come in where we left off last episode, where we were in the sister circle with all the girls at Ashley's beach house. And we left off where Robin was about to tell us about the friend that was stealing from her, which pretty much left her in the financial situation she's in now. They drug her into a Ponzi scheme, her and her husband. And I can really not necessarily relate, but empathize with Robin in the situation because I've worked for a company that was a pyramid scheme. And although it wasn't as apparent as, maybe most pyramid schemes are, it definitely was a pyramid scheme. And so I can totally relate to investing your money and investing your time and investing everything into something and, it not giving you anything back. And the fact that she didn't know anything about this, I understand how it could really hurt her feelings and, for them to trust this person and whatnot. So, yeah, how do you feel about it?
I think it was terrible. She cried because she talked about how, it was her best friend. It really does suck. The sister circle was really interesting that night because Katie didn't divulge very much in the sister circle because she had a huge attitude, and she was feeling some type of way with the way that Giselle was handling the situation from before,
right.
And which I completely understood. And then when it was Giselle's turn to talk in the sister circle, only thing she divulged was that she was taking some kind of laxative tea while she was on a date with some guy at some point, and she had a big diarrhea situation, and everyone else was divulging big news. Karen talked about her mother getting diagnosed with the early stages of dementia. Charisse sort of talked about her husband and their marriage, and all these people, they were just all talking about deep things. Robin was talking about being stolen from, and then Giselle comes out with the poop conversation. And even the next morning, after the sister circle, the ladies kind of rounded up and low-key talked about the fact that Giselle only talked about poop. And then she came at Katie during the sister circle. She was again, she brought up the drug situation, and it's are you okay? Are you on something? And Katie was upset, and she was upset for a reason, because Giselle tried to basically have not an intervention, but tried to talk to her about her supposed.
And she tried to throw Brene under the bus as well about it, because she said Brene brought it up at the little craft session they had, which Brene did say something about it, but it wasn't anything to where Giselle had to bring it up again. And when Brene brought it up, and it was just ooh, way to throw Brene under the bus, for something that was already supposed to be passed. And Katie had already said I wasn't on drugs.
Yeah.
It's kind of just even if she was on drugs, just leave it alone. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, she's not going to divulge that to you guys. So, moving on.
Yeah, and the way she was with Brene, and Brene brought it up in a way that wasn't even nearly as invasive or as uncomfortable. Basically, Brene said that, she's when I first met you, or when I first saw you at Ashley's party and you guys were just making out, I was is she on something? That's different than being in a sister circle where everyone's talking about their truths and you go, Katie. So we, Brene brought it up, and we were just concerned that you were you and Andrew were on drugs. Even if her and Andrew partook
pills,
and does that? Are you close enough with Katie and thinking that she has a drug problem?
Do you really care? Do you really care, outside of this show? Do you care about Katie's health?
Yeah, and her kid, just crazy. So Katie shut down and walked away at the end of the night, and just kind of went to bed and wasn't feeling well. Wasn't feeling it because she was upset, and so.
Him and his cup. I know you guys have been paying attention.
So, and then the next scene, next day they get up, and there's a little adventure plan for them, and they go to some part of, I don't think it was Bethany Beach, but another local beach, and they do some touristy things. And one of the things that they do is they go to a shop to take pictures, and the pictures are old-time saloon pictures. So the ladies get dressed up in old-timey saloon outfits, and Katie uses this moment to pull Giselle aside, and it was really good. The reason why Katie used that moment is because both Karen and Brene earlier in that morning went in her room and was girl, you need to nip Giselle's situation. Giselle's picking at you in the bud. You need to nip it, because she will continue to pick on you if you don't stop her. And so Katie was like, well, you know, my way of dealing with it is to walk away. And both Brene and Karen were like, no, boo. She's not the kind of person that's going to understand that is you not dealing with it, you know? So, so she did, and she took that moment, and she was so serious. Like, the scene between Katie and Giselle was like...
Yeah.
Was tense. Like, it was like they were both staring at each other. Katie was not smiling. Giselle was not trying to defend herself. Giselle apologized. And, like, Katie was like... When Katie put her foot down, she was just like...
She was like, listen, just, like, not acceptable. Like, don't question me. Don't put my motherhood and, like, you know, who I am in jeopardy. And Giselle's like, I never said anything about your kid. And she's like, listen, by you insinuating something like that, it flows into who I am. And I am a mother. And the fact that you were to mention something like that puts that into jeopardy. And, you know, I was proud of Katie, surprisingly. And Katie gets on my nerves, don't get me wrong. Like, Katie annoys me. But, like, in that situation, I felt like Giselle was out of line, and I felt like Katie needed to put her foot down, and I felt like Giselle respected that, and I hope the situation is done, because, like, I'm over it, like, Giselle bullying Katie.
Yeah. I'm over Giselle bullying everybody. In fact, I feel like I'm starting to see Giselle, like, when I first saw the first episode, I was like, ooh, her and Robin, they're so pretty. They're giving me, like, Vanessa Williams. And, like, now I'm literally starting to see Giselle as not being pretty. Anybody I would want to talk to, she looks, like, evil. Not evil, but, like, she looks bad to me. And so that ends up peacefully. They take the picture. It looks really cute. And...
They go to eat, all the girls. And during that session where they're eating, Katie is, like... talking about, honestly, I don't even know what Katie's talking about, but I know the response is like, Giselle's like, white people don't care about black people. She don't even care about you. So you elaborate on that.
Basically, Katie is talking to Ashley and kind of the group, just very, very briefly, about the fact that being with white men who are in the financial, or being, not with white men, but having to deal with white people and having a white boyfriend. And, you know, when she tries to talk about, like, the current issues that are happening, or, like, Black Lives Matter, it kind of, like, glosses over them and they don't get it. And just how frustrating that is, because as a woman of color, she feels X, Y, and Z. And Ashley was sort of agreeing, like, you know, yeah, it can be a difficult thing to traverse, because you want them to understand, like, to empathize with you. And so then Giselle has this, like, confession, like, where she talks directly to the producers, you know, like, she's like, white people don't care about you, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, Giselle...
She loves bringing up the whole white people versus black people.
Yeah, and I'm just like, Giselle, you have been living off of light-skinned, almost looking white privilege your entire life. Like, stop. Like,
I thought you were white before the show came out.
Like, I mean, I don't want to take away who you are. Exactly. I don't want to take away your blackness, but, like,
all right,
you don't have to go so hard. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's that.
That's that, yeah.
So next scene, they're at the gay bar. Everybody's hanging out. Like, Karen, very surprised to see her, like, out of her shell and dancing and getting it in and everything.
So yeah, they go to a gay bar afterwards because they're just doing a day of activities. So this is the next activity they do.
Prior to that, Ashley mentions to her husband, she's talking to him and she's telling him about how they're going to go to this gay bar. So all of a sudden, like, they're watching the drag show, excuse me. And, you know, her husband pops up behind her. What's her husband's name?
Michael.
Michael pops up behind her. And she's like, oh my God, baby. Da, 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 da. And after that, everything just goes downhill. Basically, the girls are upset because it's supposed to be a girls' weekend, and her husband showed up. And, like, we had differing opinions when it came to this situation, which I can understand. You're annoyed. A man shows up, you know, it's girls' weekend, like, annoying. But, like, for me personally, it's like, I don't really care. It's a big group of girls. You know, it's not like it was like 3 or 2 of them, and then all of a sudden here comes the third wheel husband, and then, like, you're feeling some type of way or whatever. It's like, it's the last night. You guys are about to leave the next morning. Like, who cares? For Giselle and Karen to make such a huge deal, and Karen to be like, oh, Ray, the Black Bill Gates wouldn't accept this. You know, he doesn't like you. Like, why? Like, nobody is trying to see you, Karen. Like, Michael is not trying to, like, look in on you guys. I don't feel like that's the reason why he came. Yes, I feel like it was annoying. It could be annoying, and I understand why. But it's just like, okay, make your complaints and get over it. And that's how I felt about the situation.
Okay, so yeah, I felt differently. So basically, Michael shows up at the gay bar, and like Karen and Giselle and some of the ladies are taken aback because they're like, "Why is Michael here?" And so Karen gets up and she says something to Ashley about it. She says like, "Oh, you know, why is Michael here?" And she's like, "Oh, he surprised me." And she's like, "Okay, well, is he staying with us?" And Ashley is like, "Yeah, he's staying in his house." And Karen's like, "I'm not comfortable with that." And Ashley's like, "I don't care." So basically, I feel what happened is that Ashley has been trying to do this whole situation and they've been kind of shitting on her. Karen hasn't been, but low-key, every day there's been some sort of issue. And finally, this is the last night and they're having a good time, and you know, maybe her husband, who she's super comfortable with and she knows loves her, shows up, and so maybe she's been drinking, so she feels like, oh my god, my husband's here, like yay, this weekend, and this weekend just got great. And when someone comes up to her to basically tell her that this situation is wrong, she gets defensive and just says she doesn't care. Here's the deal. She should care. Michael should not have shown up. She's been gone for 3 days. 3 days on a girl's trip, and he just shows up out of the blue like some thirsty husband. Like, go home. Like, he could have came the morning of and then had an extra long weekend with Ashley. He didn't have to come the night while she's partying with the girls to like join the girls group. And the fact that he's like staying at the house, he could have gotten a hotel, especially when he found out that the other ladies were mad. He should have said, no, babe, I'm going to get a hotel and stay the night there. You can come stay with me or whatever. The fact is that Ashley then wasn't being a gracious host. Now, so why feels differently, obviously. At the end of it, when Karen and Giselle were talking to Ashley about it when they got back to the house, Ashley was like, you guys are blowing this up out of proportion. And then like Michael is still just standing there, hovering, being in the conversation, making it awkward. And so basically Karen and Giselle just gave up and went to sleep, but Robin, Charisse, and Brene stayed out and hung out with Ashley and
they had a good time. I don't understand.
Yeah, and they ended up having a good time. So the big deal is that Ashley wasn't being a gracious host at the end of it, and then didn't care.
To the two that have the biggest issues besides Charisse. But I'm just like who? Like, oh my god. I feel like it's so petty. I feel like this situation was so
I feel like it's petty on both ends. I feel like for Karen to be like, oh, you know, Ray wouldn't appreciate this, and how would Ray feel? Like, girl, you and Ray are like 75 years old. Like, what do you mean he doesn't appreciate this? This isn't the old times where like your husband owns you. Like, stop trying to bring these antiquated like married situations into the forefront, Karen. I'm not with that. I get you being uncomfortable because I would be uncomfortable too. So I understand that, but it's also Michael and Ashley not being gracious. They're both at fault. Someone should have reneged, and it should have been Ashley because she was the hostess. So that's just the way I feel about that. I mean, I get where Karen and Giselle are coming from, but the way they acted and how far they took it was too far. I agree, but they had. Initially, the initial spark was, to me, a reaction that I would have had.
Do you really feel like a big deal about being the 7th wheel, though? Like, maybe the 3rd wheel? Or maybe even the 4th wheel. But there's, like, 6 women there. There's, like, 5 other women, or 4 other women that you can, like, go off with. Like, who cares what Ashley and her husband are doing? That's my thing. Like, who cares?
But it wasn't a weekend for Ashley and her husband.
For her like that.
It wasn't a weekend for Ashley and her husband. Okay. So like that's what I get.
My comparison to that is like Karen. Like I told
she's
you
the
before,
host.
Karen. It'd
be different if she wasn't the host.
Her little puppy was no longer doing what she wanted her little puppy to do. Ashley being the puppy, and as soon as the puppy pooped on the floor, Karen was over it. And that's what happened. Ashley did something Karen just absolutely did not like, and she was just like, I'm done with you. I'm not hanging out with you no more. And then it shows in the next episode. If you guys saw the previews, like Karen is going to be super rude to Ashley in the next episode. So that's that.
Yeah. All right, so that's the end of this recap of the Real Housewives of Potomac. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns you want to add to the conversation, please leave a comment down below. Okay, guys, have a fantastic day.
Bye.